everybody, how are you doing? We are on to, unfortunately, the final session in our Design Cuts Live Illustrator event. Addie, you are like running this one out for us. You have our final session. You're like the headliner.
Oh no, I wouldn't say that. I always feel like if I'm after Lisa, it's a really hard act to follow because she's always good. She always nails it.
But yeah, I mean, you've already done an absolutely awesome session using your Flower Builder product, which was really, really cool. I'm sure a lot of our community who've turned up today have already seen that. Hopefully, if you haven't, do go check it out in our Learning Hub because it's there and it's a really good session. And obviously, you just started using your new watercolor brushes to actually to bring it to life even more. And I think that's what your session's about today.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, so today we're going to be focusing more on coloring them in and showing how you would move from the templates to your final piece, how to make it more your own and not feel like a template in the first place. So what I have here is this is a mix of some of the pre-made flowers that are already fully arranged, and then some partials with some petals thrown in. And I've just kind of threw them all on here. They're all kind of clustered. And from here, we'll draw in some greenery and start to fill in the arrangement more to make it more cohesive.
Cool.
So this is my top layer below my texture stack. I'm in the paper canvas that comes with the watercolor and ink set, and I'm using the paper texture one, but you can switch between and figure out which one you like best. They're very distinct textures. And then I have splatter option one. And that's another way to just add some more watercolor variation. You can also turn that off altogether. And I'm going to reduce the opacity of this top layer here. And I have an extra layer here. I'm just going to start painting on this layer. So pull out my color palette. And let's start off with the rough paint and blend brush. And these 4 brushes, I'll say quick, are all really watery and flooded and flow together. It's kind of like working on wet when you're painting analog. And so they are very malleable for like color mixing, and nothing really has to be set in stone with these. You can get a lot of variation in dilution and pigment, but they are varying levels of edge texture. So the rough paint and blend is the most textured out of these. And I'm going to start by just painting some greenery. So I'm choosing this very dark green. And my brush size is around 4%. And this brush is, I showed a little bit in the demonstration yesterday, but I'll show here. The brush strokes, as you layer them, have a multiply effect. And so as you lay more brush strokes down, it'll be darker and darker. And then you can take that layered brush stroke and kind of blend it out further. So you can get that hard edge effect within that and get some nice, zoom in so you can see better, some nice color variation. And this brush also then, when you keep the stroke on going, it kind of runs out of pigment and it just becomes more watery.
It's very expressive, isn't it?
Yeah. The edge texture, I just love it because when you paint with paper and paint, it is never smooth and crisp. And maybe if you go back in with a tiny detail, you can get that nice, like, clean line. But because of the texture of the paper, most of the time it's going to be pretty rough. And so I love how this replicates that. There's some watercolor brushes, and including one in this set too, that you kind of have to draw in a continuous brush stroke to get like a non-layered effect.
Well,
And
says she missed it. Which brush are you using right now?
oh, I am using the rough paint and blend.
Cool.
And so like, I'll show you with the diluted glaze brush quick, just as an example. This is one where if you paint in one continuous stroke, it behaves as if it's wet. And then immediately when you paint on top of it, it's like you're painting on top of dry paint. And so that's like the big difference between that and then these four, is that these are more painting wet on wet. And if you want to layer multiple, like, what am I trying to say? If you want to layer as if you were painting on top of dry, then you can add a new layer. But I like that you can. I like that you're not locked into anything here, because inevitably I will find myself trying to do one continuous brush stroke, and then it turns into a quick shape, which is a function within Procreate that's great, but it'll like turn the lines into a square, and that's not what I'm trying to draw. So I like the flexibility.
And did you develop these brushes with the other pack specifically, or was there something that kind of came out of working for the other pack?
A bit of both, I would say. The process for this, I always have some brushes in the works, and the flower one, like I said, I was working on for months on and off again. And then as I really started to pull it all together and curate it, I then started developing this, and just wanted to explore this style. And so when we go in and add ink, I was really into the like the elevation that adding ink gives to your watercolor, and how you can just have some abstract blobs and then pull out a actual illustration out of those blobs. I just felt like it was really accessible to any level, and a fun way to play with style. And so when I went to start creating some of the preview images for the flower builder, that's when I really worked on the development of this brush set.
Yeah, it's funny. I think a lot of designers do that. They end up developing brush packs whilst doing previews.
Yeah.
Because they need that. Well, I haven't got the right brush to do this. The thing I need to do, so I'm going to make a brush for it. And before you know it, you've got a set of brushes.
It's so true. And that's probably why I've always felt like the preview images take just about as long as the actual brushes. But maybe it's because we're getting distracted and making more brushes while we do them.
Well, Nishreen says the layered watercolor effect makes the illustration look so vibrant, like real paint. Super light, she says.
Thank you. That's so nice.
Jem is just reminding everyone, yeah, please do. If you want to ask a question, just pop it in the ask a question at the bottom. Maybe you want to know, which brush is best for one particular thing, the flower or the leaves or the branches, or.
All right, I'm going to move on from the greenery now for a bit and add a new layer to paint my florals on. And let's switch to the rough hue shift paintbrush.
Nita says she's loving the effect of the watercolor brushes. Yeah, me too. It was really cool watching you at the end of the session. So I was really looking forward to working more into it today.
Oh, good. I felt bad that we didn't get to finish. I feel like it was just like incomplete. I actually sat down and finished the piece afterward for a good while. This brush is pretty messy. I'm not, staying super tight within the lines for this step, because really I'm trying to just fill the petals with color, and then I'll go back in and layer some more variation, add some shading, in definition later on, but for this step, I'm just throwing down color. And this is like the name has hue shift in it, so it has just a really subtle amount of hue change in between brush strokes and a little bit within the strokes, like within a single brush stroke itself, just enough to kind of give that real blended paint effect as if you were mixing your own.
It's amazing how real it looks.
The brush engine within Procreate, I feel like I have to give so much of the credit to that because they have just developed such an incredible this piece of software that you can really manipulate to exactly what you want. It's wild to me that this exists.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
All right. Change some colors.
I think it's funny to think like my daughter's going to take all this for granted, you know?
Yeah.
But this just wasn't, you know, this just wasn't here. This wasn't doable.
Oh, that's so interesting to think about. It'll be so commonplace. Yeah, I think as a millennial, I'm the last generation to like remember, at least in the Western world, to remember growing up without computers and without that in your life as a day-to-day thing. Like I didn't have a cell phone until I was in college.
For sure. Same here. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And now, I mean, it is even, you know, you say your daughter, she'll take it for granted, but I feel like I do too. It's just wild to think about like navigating when you're driving before you had Google Maps.
Before Google Maps, I know, it's crazy. Ruthie asks, do you change the pressure when using the watercolor brushes?
Yes, I do. I do change my pressure quite a bit. I'm usually a pretty hard drawer anyway. Like I press down pretty hard when I draw. And this might not be the best brush to demonstrate, but let me see if I can show you. So this brush is pressure sensitive for both size and opacity. And so this is really light pressure. It almost goes down to nothing, but without lifting my brush stroke, I can get more pigment just by pressing harder. And so unlike some of the other ones that run out at the end of the stroke, and no matter how hard you press after the stroke is done, it won't like refill. You'd have to, you know, hypothetically like redip your brush in the paint. This one will keep going if you add more pressure. So I guess it would be kind of like those brush pens that have water within them. I don't know.
The reservoir in them, and you just
Yeah.
Oh, Jem's just reminding everyone, do pick up your freebie as well.
Oh yeah, the color palette.
Here we go, the color palette, and Jem's just linked it up. Thanks, Jem. And everyone, do click on the Design Cuts logo at the top, and we will keep you abreast of new sessions. We have a Thursday session every single week with a designer, which is always really cool, really lovely live hangout. You get to come and chat to the community, learn new things. It's all good.
So with Tom out, are you taking the reins next week and the week after that as well?
That's me for because obviously Tom's on honeymoon for 2 weeks. So, and I think he's just shattered, so he's off poorly for a few days, which is why I'm taking this event. So it's quite interesting because I normally do live sessions from the other way around. So I sit there and practice and I talk it over, and then, you know, I present various things, how to make digital design products and that kind of thing. So it's good fun. It's good fun doing it from this way around as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're a great host. Keep things moving. We got through the questions and I didn't even know it happened yesterday.
Absolutely petrified the first time I started doing these.
Same. Same on this end. I still am beforehand.
Yeah, I still get nervous beforehand, definitely. Really do.
Yeah,
and I think about it the night before the first session in the live event.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
All right, and you wake up and you're like, oh.
Yeah, I just need to like accept that I'm always going to be nervous and like deal with that anxiety, and that's just a fact of
Gonna ride it out.
it.
Do you know what makes it absolutely awesome is just turning up and seeing Lindsay and Sam and Bill and everyone else from our lovely community in the chat though, because it just settles my nerves. Because I think, okay.
Yeah, I think
Not
it
on my
is
own.
so incredible that you all take so much time to join us. Like that just warms my heart so much.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Bill. Bill's saying we're doing great, and Gem's saying we're both doing awesome. Thanks, Gem.
Oh, thanks. Oh, really, I mean, like time is so precious, and I make a lot of YouTube videos, and like the fact that people devote their time to watching, and then come join week after week with design cuts. I think that that's just like
it's great, isn't it? I know.
Yeah.
I get a huge kick out when I'm on the other side of it and I'm giving a session and people are watching it, and when they get something out of it and maybe they reach out on Instagram afterwards and say, do you know, I really got something out of that. That just makes it so worthwhile.
It does. It really does.
Oh, thank you, Jerry, saying we're lots of fun and such great information. Thank you very much.
Oh.
And yeah, thank you for the support, Amy.
And this is also just like the nicest community.
Oh, thank you. I think I'm very biased, obviously, as it's our community, but I love our community. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So it just makes it worthwhile.
I think like by and large there's a lot more good on the internet than bad, but like
Sure.
Sometimes you'll see like toxic YouTube comments, and that is never the case with creatives that I've found.
Sure. And I've talked on other events, and it's just been like tumbleweed in the chat, and I'm so not used to it. I keep looking at the chat expecting comments, and it's like,
Yes.
and I'm like, well, I'll just literally the last one I did, I talked for an hour and it was just silence apart from me. And after a while I thought, is anyone else there? Is it working?
Yeah, that is, I have to say, and I'll watch other live streams of other things, and this is the most active chat. Like sometimes you can't even read it. It's going so fast.
It's really lovely. So yeah, thank you everyone so much. Oh, there's that blue flower I was talking about in the last session. Love it.
Yeah, doing some forget-me-nots.
Yeah.
They're appropriately sized too.
One of my favorites. I have actually got a vase full of flowers in the background. I don't know if people can see that. It's very small, but there are some there. Some are flowers. Some
I see the yellow.
There you go. Yeah. Brightening the
They handpicked.
Handpicked from Sainsbury's, which is a superstore in the UK. Handpicked at the end of my shopping run.
It counts. Totally counts. All right, I think that's the last of my flowers that I need to fill in. And so what I'm going to do is do some freehand blobby style flowers. And I'm going to switch to the mid-texture watercolor for this. And got to choose a color. Let's do this deep purple.
It's looking lovely. I think when I see something like this and all of a sudden I can see it on a greetings card or an invite or,
yeah.
As soon as I know something's nice, when I think, oh, that'd be really nice on the corner of an invite and a bit of negative space.
For sure. I never have printed my work. I don't have a printer, and I haven't I make things for tutorials, and so I don't end up doing much of anything with them, but I should give that a shot.
I just think this would be great for use on greetings cards and invites and Christmas.
And greeting cards, I think that creating those, not just like the illustrations, but also like the insides of them, would be such a fun job.
It is good. I always make my own greetings card. I even wrote a poem today for Tom's card for his wedding.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Do you do a lot of poetry?
I do a bit. Yeah, I really enjoy writing. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm a bit stuck. I'm not sure if I'm happy on it. When you look at it, you're like, oh, I quite like it. Occasionally I do
Yeah.
one, I'm like, oh, that's really good. But there's no like, it's like any kind of creativity. Some days it just works, and some days it's like, no.
Yeah. And some days you can look at the same thing and hate it. And the next
That's
day
it.
you're like, this is the best thing I've ever done.
I still have that. I don't really want to show it to anyone currently.
Yeah.
Should I get feedback?
Oh my gosh. He will love that. That is like so thoughtful.
Oh, he's been lovely to me, so he deserves it.
Aw. All right, so I've got my blobby little flower clusters here, and I think it's time to go in with some detail. So I'm going to add a new layer for this, and I'm doing that because I'm going to use some lighter colors for highlights, which is not typical with watercolor. Usually you would just use less paint and you work lightest to darkest. But that's the beauty of digital, is that you can break the rules.
Yeah, I think I was chatting in Nathan's session about obviously analog watercolor. You need to leave your highlights, right? You can't then paint over the top, and you can't go multimedia easily, and it's changed.
Yeah, there's just a lot more freedom, and it's hard to go back to analog. I think that like there's trade-offs either way, but I bought a gouache set recently, and it is really difficult to not be able to undo.
I always used to find watercolor so difficult. Linda in the chat has just asked, oh, there we go, where they can find the freebies. But you can find them on the Design Cuts Live page for Addie's session, which you could also find in the Learning Hub on the website as well, where you will be able to find in there. And all the sessions are recorded and will be in there forever to help other designers.
Yeah.
Oh, and Jem's linked it up as well. Thanks, Jem.
You guys do such a thorough job of writing out the written version of the tutorials.
Yeah, it's super helpful.
It's so fantastic. I don't think I said it. I am using the smooth paint and blend brush here, and I just chose a really dark color. The reason for that is that it layers up that darker color the more brush strokes that you add, but you can really dilute it out by reducing pressure as you move away from the darkness. And so you can get a really blended effect without having to use the smudge tool. So I'm using the template as like somewhat of a guide for where I'm adding some shadow and wrinkles. But as always, it's totally up to you. And so the nice thing about it being digital is that you can change your mind partway through the process and change the whole flower. And so if you don't want to use like these lines here that are indicated like wrinkled wavy petals, just skip them.
And for anyone who missed the first session, this is all these flowers are actually made from kind of templated shapes that you can drop in, and there's guides where you can change the perspective, so it helps you build flowers and build them up. It's just so that you can actually get started and then work into it to really speed up the process of drawing flowers and learn how to draw them as well, I think.
Yeah, and ideally, then when you go to try freehanding, you'll have that much more knowledge and confidence in doing so.
And Jem's just linked up that kit, so in the chat there's a link to it, so go check it out, and do check out that first session if you missed it, because it was a really cool session and really interesting way, I thought, to do it from a product perspective. I love all these kind of like learning tools that designers and artists release now, which are to help people power up their actual illustration and drawing. And then there's usually a brush pack to go and coincide with it, like this one, which is perfect for this kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like Ian Bernard with his grid
Grid builder.
Grid builder? Yeah, like
Yeah,
that. He was really a pioneer.
He was, for sure. And that product has just flown and flown and flown.
I was looking back, and that was like one of your first Procreate products, right?
It was, yeah, one of our first ones. Years. That's a couple of years now, probably.
And it's still one of the most popular ones. That is incredible.
It's wedged in our best sellers for all eternity. It's just so useful, though, isn't it? I mean, it's like, it's typical. Ian found, he was working, and he thought, well, wouldn't it be really useful if I had this for my work? And then he thought, well, other people might find this useful, and sold it, and
Yeah, I think it's solving that pain point that makes the best stuff.
And it's nice to see that Flower Builder and Ink and Watercolor for the social proof are also in our best sellers right at the top currently, which is really good to see.
Yeah, I hope that they prove very useful for people.
As I said, they're making me want to get creative, which is always a really good sign.
Yeah. Do you have an iPad? Do you paint, draw?
Do you know, I do analog, but I don't do iPad. It might sound a bit crazy, but I'm just so busy with work, with kind of the creative direction side of things.
Oh, so yeah.
I really do need to get one and start doing it.
But I think it's easy to underestimate the amount that it takes out of you doing creative direction, and to be doing that in a professional sense all day and then come home and try to be more creative on top of that can be so draining.
It can be. I mean, I play the guitar. You can probably see in the corner, and I write some poetry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do still do some drawing and painting, which is really nice. Do some pottery as well. You can probably see there's some pottery up on the shelves.
Oh, really? Oh, that's so cool. I took a class in ceramics class last summer.
That is awesome, right?
It is so hard, but one thing, there's just so many opportunities for things to go disastrously wrong.
And I was really, really rubbish at throwing pots, with the wheel. I was an absolute disaster at it. I was quite good at building the things, but couldn't actually do the throwing pots. So I need to get back and do some more.
It is really just like a skill that you have to build, because I don't think anybody is unnatural at it. It is just very hard to do.
So yeah, I've got a little sort of studio room upstairs but I use air dry clay because I do it with my daughter.
So that's so fun.
What you can do, but we make tiles and paint them and little pots and that kind of thing.
That is so fantastic.
So it's good fun.
So she's really creative too.
Oh, hugely. So we did a tile actually, and hers is much nicer than mine.
Oh, I love that.
It's really funny. I'm like, oh, that's really good, Lauren.
Oh.
Bless her. But she's just, because she's 6, she's got no filters. When she draws and designs, it's just pure creativity, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's so incredible. I think life kind of can dim that for people and kind of beats it down. So it's wonderful that you are encouraging her and doing those things with her. That's so sweet.
Oh, Nishreen asks, is your pack a flower builder or power builder? I think it's both, right? Kay asks, is all the painting being done on the same layer?
So I did add a new layer for the shadow that I'm doing right now. You certainly can do it on the same layer. The only reason that I added a new layer is because I'm going to go in with some lighter colors on top, and that won't necessarily work the same way on the same layer. Because most of these brushes multiply, like the blend mode, the brush strokes together. Adding the new layer helps you use that lighter on top of darker.
I see.
So I'm going in.
How do you determine the colors in the shading? I find I struggle with that in traditional watercolor and end up with muted colors.
Ooh, that is a good question. And I feel like I have the same struggle with traditional watercolor as well. And I think there's so many factors in that. The paints that you're using play a huge role, but even like the paper, and so much of it is trial and error. So I feel that struggle with traditional. With digital, most of these are vibrant enough, the brushes, and then combined with something that makes a big difference in the vibrancy is these splatter layers that are color burn. And I turn on some of these, you can see like how big of a difference in how vibrant it is just from that. As far as the shading and everything goes, I think that that's also a lot of trial and error, and practice. But in general, with the flowers, I'm really doing mostly just cast shadows and like really simple shading and lighting on these. And so my rule of thumb is that anywhere that the petals overlap, I will add a little bit of darker pigment in here. And then to bring out the rest of the petal shape, I will add highlights in like the edge here on this fold, and the edge of this petal. This is kind of a tricky one because it's twisted. And sometimes I feel like less is more with these. So you can always go back and add more, but especially like with highlight, just a little bit will do the trick of bringing it to life. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that was really good. I think often things are flatter than you expect them to be in real life as well, you know, when you actually look at an object in terms of the variation in tone.
Yeah, and it is like a subtle transition for a lot of things. So for like the true pure highlight, you might have a sharper edge, but then a lot of the variation is very subtle.
I know when I used to use charcoal, I'd be like, you know, you'd start on something, you'd be like, there's the shadow and there's the light, but then getting all this sort of graduation in between, you'd almost run out of light and shadow. You'd be like, oh, that's now as dark as that, but I've already done that.
And all just the whole paper's gray.
Exactly.
I was never good with charcoal. I think for that reason.
Yeah. And saying that working with clay is a good hand workout too. It really is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and depending on like the height of everything, I was noticing like the back pain from being bent over the wheel.
For sure.
Or when you're, I don't remember what it's called, but when you have to like get the bubbles out of the wedging, when you're wedging the clay.
Yeah, it's a disaster if you've got bubbles in it.
Yeah. That you have to use your whole body weight to do that.
Gail asks, the darker small patches that appear, is that the brush doing it or where the colors overlap?
A bit of both. So I'll show you by hiding this layer. Some of that darkness is from what I've added, and the paper texture adds a fair amount as well, or the splatter texture.
It's amazing how much the paper textures make a difference to the realism, isn't it? I guess quite understandably.
Yeah, but that is really the biggest piece of advice I can give anybody when they're starting out in digital art is if you want to immediately level up, use a texture of some kind. Because that it just goes from being flat to dynamic. So I'm just roughly painting in the centers. I went through a bit yesterday of different kinds of flower centers that you can do. Most of the time, for this step, I just do dots, and it's so small, it works out. All right. I'm going to add a little bit more. Oh, I forgot a center here. I'm going to add a little bit more greenery.
Some cool canvas packs around now as well for Procreate and Photoshop, etc. And I think Nathan did a session with us recently showing, just showing how they work and stuff. It's worth seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, he just released that pack, yeah?
He did, yeah. He just released it recently, and Lisa's got one as well. So there's a couple of really great Lisa Glan's canvas packs for wet and dry media now, so that you can and it really does add a dimension to the work.
Yeah, I love Lisa's. I've definitely used hers. I'll have to check out Nathan's new one. I know Shout Bam released one too a couple months back.
Yeah.
And then I always love Addie from Uproot Brushes. Her overlay brushes are really great.
I think it's amazing because there's so much variety in the way you can implement the brushes. They're all so different, and they're also individual to the designer who put them together.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like Lisa has such a distinctive
she really does
brush style, which is appropriate because she has such a distinctive art style too, but it's incredible that through line is there with her brushes as well. Okay, let's add some ink. So I'm going to use a dark gray and the Crumb Solid Ink brush. I don't remember why I named it that. Because it's kind of crumbly.
Oh, Jem's just calling out how to get to the canvas packs. Thanks, Jem. So yeah, assuming you're going to grab this pack because it looks beautiful, that'd be a really lovely thing to play with both, I think.
Oh no! I'm so sorry.
The gremlins kicked in. It's all good. Let's see how quickly it can come back to life. So I will take this opportunity to say to everyone, if you have missed any of the sessions so far, that we've had some absolutely awesome sessions this week. From Nathan Brown, did an absolutely fantastic session yesterday from Trailhead, showing you how to do like children's art, like children's book art, which was really, really super cool. Obviously, we had Dan Flores earlier on, who was really great as well, doing character drawing. That was worth seeing. Do go check that out. And of course, do check out Lisa Glanz's session as well, which was just absolutely awesome. There we go.
Sorry about that. My goodness.
At least it wasn't something that needed to charge.
Yeah. Yeah, always have 2 batteries. Yeah. So with the inking, I'm working on a new layer for this, and this brush especially has a lot of texture within it, and then it's pressure sensitive. So with light pressure, you can see it's barely there at the size that it's at right now. So I use heavier pressure to get some of these thicker lines, but I like that variation.
Oh, Sherry's just said in the chat that this is her first Design Cuts live. Very nice and informative, and can't wait for more. Thanks so much, Sherry. It's nice to see you here, and I hope you enjoy chatting to everyone. And enjoy the sessions, and come back every Thursday as well. And we do sessions every single Thursday too. Be lovely
it's
to
truly
see you
the nicest group of people.
Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? Sam's saying she wonders how the inking brushes would look with a bit of gold foil. Yeah, I think that'd be really interesting.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I have any metallics readily available.
Well, I would recommend, again, a little bit biased, to go and get Julia Dreams' recent Art Deco pack, which is one of ours as well, which is just awesome. And there's some nice metallics in there. Love a bit of deco and a bit of foil.
Yeah, so classic.
Yeah. Evelyn is saying the ink brush is fabulous.
Oh,
It's lovely,
thank you. Thank you so much. It's fun how immediately it comes to life with adding the ink.
Yeah, it really does. It's just a lot freer, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm rushing a little bit, but I love this loose, easy style. It kind of like breaks me out of some of my perfectionism that I can fall into.
I think Dan Flores was using Sketchable earlier and then taking that into Illustrator, which was interesting. But he was using Illustrator on Microsoft Surface.
Oh, cool.
It was a really cool session. So if anyone didn't see that, go and check that out earlier on today. Really great session. Such a talented illustrator. And very interesting to see the way he works and builds up illustrations and like blocks of color and stuff in Illustrator, but in quite a free way, quite loose initially.
Yeah, I'll have to catch that replay.
It's cool. Very cool guy. And does an awesome sneaker with a massive tongue, apparently mainly because he doesn't like drawing ankles.
That's funny. I would think that the sneaker is much harder than the ankle.
You'd think, wouldn't you? I'm like, I love the massive tongue on the sneakers. He's like, yeah, I don't like drawing ankles.
That's too funny.
I think Jen's just linked it up. Yeah, thanks, Jen. Oh yeah, and Anne-Lou's saying check out the making of the Art Deco pack in the Learn section. Yeah, really super cool session. That really fun. Because obviously we worked with Julia Dreams on the making of that product. So I did one of these sessions, I think a couple of weeks back now, and broke down how we designed the product and all the making of it, and the initial sketches, the mood boards, the entire process, how the previews, the covers, everything. Really just shows you the huge amount of work that goes into the products that the designers put together on design cuts.
That's awesome. It's so cool that you guys have that visibility that you give to everybody. I feel like that that makes it so much more meaningful.
It does. We love it. We're designers, you know.
Yeah, and I think not everybody is as transparent as that, but it only makes you like love it more, the product and seeing the process and the labor of love that goes into it.
I think Tom labeled us design geeks quite early on, and I think we probably are. You know,
it's appropriate.
Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that new product? Oh, and how did they make that? You know.
Yeah.
And even down to things like the way Lisa did one of her recent the gouache product. The YouTube video she did on it shows how she designed the cover, which is really lovely. And it really
I didn't see that.
To the actual, it's really clever. Yeah.
That's such a good idea.
Really good idea. Cool.
That is one of my favorite brush packs. I just this week released a tutorial using it, and it is so fun to use.
Awesome. That stuff's amazing. She walks on design water.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just a big fangirl of Lisa's. See how I'm doing on time.
Oh, it's okay. You've got 12 minutes till. Yeah.
Okay.
But really, if you want to run a bit long, that's absolutely fine. And all the questions I've asked anyway, so
Okay.
it's all good. So if anyone does want to ask any final questions, please do pop them in the ask a question box at the bottom.
So with these little blobby flowers that I found, I only recently figured out what I had been struggling with them. I was having difficulty making it look like they were all actually properly connected. And so I don't know if this is just this is maybe just an Addie struggle, but if this is what I figured out, it helps to show, this is maybe a little messy, so I'll try to do a cleaner here. It helps to show like multiple little branches coming up to hold the flower bud. And also for ones that are lower in the stem, having those multiple branches show through as if they were, crossing up to connect. That just helps it look more realistic. And so let me start fresh with a new one over here. I can maybe demonstrate
Jennifer
a little
asks,
better.
which watercolor paper you're using? I love the texture.
This is paper 1.
And Bill says, at the beginning of a piece, do you see the piece in your mind, or is it finding it as you go along?
Finding it as I go, for sure. I think some of that just comes from not wanting to make decisions up front. I think there's like a middle ground of having a vague idea of what I want, or maybe even like a semi-formed idea, but a lot of like picking colors I do more intuitively. And
I was going to say, Betsy also says, how do you choose the colors for your palettes? So that's a fortuitous question.
Yeah, I do it on feel. And I mean, I'll start usually with like, I have a Pinterest board, and I'll start to like go in a direction with that of the mood that I want. But then it's just a lot of sitting with the color wheel and adjusting the saturation and the brightness, and trying to figure out just the right pairings and what feels good.
Well, Jem's just calling out that both of the packs used in the making of this beautiful illustration are available for 32% off for a limited time. They are, so go and grab them now and have a play.
Yeah, because you also get the multi-buy discount too.
Looking really beautiful, Addie.
Oh, thank you.
I really love it. I love it when they're really loose around the leaves.
It's partly because I have a few other things I need to show. We'll just say it was totally intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the designer's way, right? Or the artist's way, when someone's like, I love this bit. I planned it out.
Yeah, my mom's a knitter, and she would always say, a mistake repeated becomes a design element.
Nice.
Which is true to an extent with knitting, but I think there comes a point where
2 armholes, 3 armholes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you consider you created this whole illustration in probably an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Amazing, really.
I think that's right side up. Yeah, so hopefully using the flower builder helps save time, speed things up for people. Make sure everything's connected, and I have one more to color or outline.
Get me onto my favorite still.
Okay. So now I feel like we're going to do some of the finishing touches that really make this look more realistic. So right now I have 4 separate layers. I am going to merge my 2 flower layers together. I think, okay, I have some greenery on this one, but I'm going to merge my 2 flower layers together. And then on my selection tool, I'm going to use the automatic selection, and I'm going to select just the negative space outside the flowers. So I'm tapping in this space out here, and you can see the selection threshold option comes up, and you can move the stylus left to right to increase and decrease. And I'm going to go all the way down to 2% here. And from here, so this is the negative space, I'm going to tap invert so that I have just the flowers selected. And then I'm adding a new layer, and I'm going to add some splatter effects on this. Sorry, I didn't realize my iPad had become tilted. That's better. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start off with this on multiply. I might change it to color burn later. And at the bottom of their set, there's these splatters, and I'm going to start with the watercolor texture one. And because this is multiply, everything is going to get darker. I don't want it to start to look muddy, so I'm going to start just with this kind of neutral purpley pink brown color. And that's maybe a little too dark. I'm going to decrease the opacity for that. And so this, like I said, it's a bit of trial and error, trying to figure out what color will work best here without it looking too messy. And maybe I'll try color burn.
I have to say as well, you've got some really beautiful previews for anyone who's interested in seeing some other really nice outcomes. If you go to the actual product page itself and check the previews out, really lovely. There's a lovely poppy, which is just stunning. And some really nice abstract trees and things, again, which have got greetings card written all over them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
really
the Zentangle, I had somebody email me asking about Zentangle style things, which is where you have the like layered patterns. And okay. I'll show an example after, but like that was really fun to do, very meditative. So you can see it just adds a little more vibrance here, a little more texture. So I'm going to release that, and then I'm going to merge all of my watercolor layers together. And then on the smudge tool, I'm going to bleed out some of this. So I merged them together so I can mix some of the green with the petal colors and sort of like blend these into each other.
We've just had a super useful comment posted about explaining the blending modes. Thank you very much in the chat.
Oh, awesome. I know that site that they posted too. That is the best guide. I think it might be the one that Procreate actually references in their like manual for Procreate. So yeah, I like to push some of the green into the flowers and vice versa. I think this just gives it that extra bit of realism. Next, I'm going to add a new layer, or yeah, I'll add a new layer for this one. And I'm going to use the Diluted Glaze Brush. And this is just a nice finishing touch. With these areas that we smudged in watercolor, you get a lot of those hard outer edges that dry. And I think having a mix of some of these hard edges with the softer helps make it look intentionally messy.
Oh, Bill's saying it's an awesome link, and Jesus has been on the DC. Love his sessions. Yeah, man, Jesus's Photoshop sessions are just absolutely crazy. Have you seen any of those?
I haven't.
They are insane. I've been using Photoshop for over 20 years, but no,
yeah.
it's like I watched that and I'm like, I feel like I haven't used Photoshop.
I think
when someone uses it and you just draw drops and you're like, what?
Yeah, the amount of things that you can do in Photoshop is just mind-blowing. I think, yeah, you can use it for decades and still not.
And it didn't even have layers when I started using it. That's terrible, isn't
really?
it? Yeah, that's how old.
It's come a long way.
It really has. It really, really has. So yeah, everyone, again, do click on the Design Cuts logo at the top. And if you want to see more of our sessions, we'll tell you when they're on so that you don't miss any.
All right, I moved up to my ink layer. Is it okay if we run? I think I have 2 more minutes of stuff to show.
No worries. Of course.
Okay. All right, so I moved up to my ink layer, and since we're going with this kind of messy, splattered theme, I find that smudging some of the ink line work just really makes it feel cohesive. And you can tap to make it look like a droplet. Oh, I'm going to hide my sketch layer since I'm done with that. So yeah, you can press once for like a big droplet, or just use it along a long line and blend it out.
Kay says in the chat that we're showing our age. Sorry, Kay, totally busted by saying that.
When were layers introduced?
Oh my goodness, it wasn't
3?
I remember when I was at university, it wasn't that much longer after I'd started using it. Goodness gracious me.
CS3, CS4?
Ooh, do you know what? I can't remember. Can someone in the chat remember when layers were introduced in Photoshop? My addled memory, my old memory can't remember. Too many early mornings waking up with a small person has addled my brain. What time is it? 4:30? Get up and watch TV?
All right. My last step here is going to be
1995. There we go.
Oh,
thanks,
wow. How long has Photoshop existed then?
You said PS3, didn't you? That's sharp. There you
nice.
Go. Nice.
I'm adding a new layer, and I'm going to add some splatters just all around. So no longer using the selection with that. I'm going to use the sparse splatter brush.
Kay says it's amazing how the painting is coming together, looking like a watercolor. Wow, it really is, isn't it?
It's crazy because I spent so much time doing all of the like first steps of filling it in, but then it all just comes together at the very end.
It's beautiful.
It's these last few steps. Okay. I think that's done.
That's awesome. Thank you ever so much. That's really, really beautiful. Stunning. Stunning. And as I say, I just want to drop it on the corner of a card, or, you know, put it on some ceramics, or any of those things. So thank you ever so much. So everyone, please say thank you very much to Addie for these 2 awesome sessions. Thank you. I think, do you know what? It's been really lovely having the time to see a piece of design work come together over like a good amount of time. Because I don't think there's any way that you could have really packed in that much value into one session.
It was nice to spread it out.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
And I think that's it, Addie. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you so much.
Both goodbye. Let's do it.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care.